Also mentioned that the latest interstellar visitor we had, 3I Atlas, could have potentially released some probes or objects during its path. And in fact, in recent months, there was a report by the Meteor Society that indeed there is a surge in the number of meteors on Earth over the past few months in the first quarter of 2026. We should always, look
and you
up
think that might be caused by three-eyed Atlas?
It's a possibility that I discussed in an essay on medium.com. I calculated that an ejection speed of only less than a few kilometers per second, which is completely reasonable of objects, even if it was a natural iceberg that fragmented, let's say a year ago or a decade ago, there was a cloud of debris around it, then some of those fragments could have hit the Earth in recent months. That's completely reasonable in terms of the numbers. The question of whether it's technological and release some probes, that's a completely separate question, because there you can have the fragments guided by technology. All I'm saying is we should be open-minded.
While NASA calls it a comet, the math of its latest trajectory change says something else. As we approach the peak of the solar maximum, 3I Atlas isn't just drifting, it's surfing the solar wind toward a very specific coordinate in our inner solar system. For months, the world has been told to watch the skies for a beautiful celestial display, a rare visitor from the interstellar void. But while the public looks for a tail of ice and dust, the world's most advanced orbital tracking systems are picking up a signature that shouldn't exist. There is a ghost in the machine of our solar system, and it's moving with a precision that nature simply does not produce on its own. The story we are being told is that 3I Atlas is just the third interstellar object ever detected, a follow-up to the famous Oumuamua and Borisov. But if you look at the raw telemetry, the kind of data that doesn't make it into the nightly news, the comet label begins to feel like a convenient placeholder for something NASA isn't ready to explain. We are seeing an object that doesn't just react to gravity, it reacts to opportunity. And right now, as our sun enters its most violent phase in a decade, 3I Atlas is making its move. To understand why this is causing such a quiet panic in the halls of space agencies, you have to understand that space is the ultimate forensic laboratory. Everything follows a path. If you throw a rock, it follows a parabola. If a comet enters our system, it follows a hyperbolic curve. It's predictable, it's mathematical, it's dead. But 3I Atlas is breaking the curve. It is accelerating when it should be slowing down, and it is turning when there is nothing there to pull it. The first piece of this puzzle is the timing. We are currently navigating the absolute peak of solar cycle 25, the solar maximum. Our sun is a roiling, chaotic engine of fusion, and right now it is screaming. It is shedding its outer layers in massive bursts known as coronal mass ejections, or CMEs. These are billions of tons of magnetized plasma being hurled into the void at millions of miles per hour. For any normal comet, a direct hit from a CME is a catastrophe. It can strip the atmosphere of a planet, and it can certainly blow a dirty snowball like a comet into a billion fragments. But 3I Atlas isn't being destroyed, it's being powered. You might remember the recent reports of NASA breaking their silence on a series of extraordinary CME events. What they didn't highlight was the correlation. Every time the sun releases a massive burst of energy toward the object sector, 3I Atlas doesn't tumble or break, it surges. It's utilizing the intense magnetic pressure of the solar wind like an interstellar sail. Imagine a ship in a storm that doesn't just survive the wind but uses the hurricane to steer. This is plasma surfing on a scale we've only ever theorized in physics papers about advanced propulsion. By arriving exactly during the solar maximum, this object ensured it had a limitless supply of high-energy propellant to navigate the inner system. It didn't bring its own fuel, it's using ours. And this leads us to the question that no one at the press briefings wants to answer: where is it going? If you're a tourist, you pass through. If you're an explorer, you stop. The current math, the raw, unedited orbital projections, shows that 3I Atlas is bleeding off its interstellar velocity with terrifying efficiency. It isn't headed for the exit. It is aiming for the L1 Lagrange point. For those who haven't spent their lives staring at star charts, the L1 point is a gravitational sweet spot. It's a specific coordinate located about 1 million miles from Earth, directly between us and the Sun. At this exact point, the pull of the Earth and the pull of the Sun cancel each other out perfectly. It is the ultimate parking spot in space. If you want to monitor the Earth, to watch every sunrise and sunset, to see every radio transmission and every launch without ever needing to use fuel to stay in place, L1 is where you go. It is the high ground of the solar system. Think about the sheer statistical impossibility of a random interstellar rock happening to have the exact trajectory, the exact braking maneuvers, and the exact timing to settle into the L1 point. It's like throwing a pebble from a mile away and having it land perfectly balanced on the tip of a needle. Nature doesn't do that. Intelligence does. And yet, as the object gets closer to this coordinate, NASA has gone remarkably silent. The daily updates have been replaced by technical delays and scheduled maintenance of the tracking feeds. The silence isn't because they've lost it, it's because they've found out what it's doing. They are watching an uninvited guest pull into our driveway and turn off the engine. But the most chilling evidence of this navigation didn't come from a radar dish or a math equation. It came from the most famous eye in the sky, the Hubble Space Telescope. On January 22nd, Hubble was pointed at 3I Atlas to capture what were supposed to be standard comet images, the cloud of dust and gas that surrounds a comet. But when the data came back, it wasn't a cloud at all. The leaked reports called them extraordinary geometries. Instead of a messy, chaotic spray of ice, Hubble captured a rigid, symmetrical structure. The tail of 3I Atlas was actually a series of synchronized pulse jets. They weren't venting randomly, they were arranged in a perfect triangular formation, firing in a rhythmic sequence. This wasn't outgassing caused by the sun's heat. This was a thruster array performing a correction burn. And here is the detail that should keep you up at night. When you take the geometry of those jets from the January 22nd images and project them forward, you realize they weren't just aiming for L1. They were aligning the object for the upcoming Mars-Earth-Sun alignment later this year. 3I Atlas is positioning itself to be the central node in a planetary alignment that only happens once in a blue moon. It is setting up a vantage point that covers both the world we live in and the world we are trying to reach. Why now? Why us? The deep space signals that some independent researchers claim to have detected correlate perfectly with these geometric pulses. We are seeing a sequence of events that looks less like a comet and more like a deployment. First, the arrival during a power-rich solar maximum. Second, the use of CMEs for non-gravitational propulsion. Third, the braking maneuvers toward the L1 gravitational parking lot. And finally, the structural revelation of January 22nd that showed a machine-like precision where we expected a rock. There is a theory circulating in the fringe of the astrophysical community, one that NASA won't go near. It's the von Neumann theory. The idea that an advanced civilization wouldn't send a crew. They would send an autonomous probe, a machine designed to travel between stars, harvest energy from local suns, and park itself in a Lagrange point to observe. If such a probe were to enter our system, it would look exactly like 3I Atlas. It would be dark, it would be fast, and it would wait until it reached the inner system to wake up and start navigating. We've seen this pattern before. We saw it with Oumuamua, the object that Harvard Avi Loeb famously suggested could be an artificial sail. But where Oumuamua was a flyby, 3I Atlas is a stay. It has shown us its rudder, it has shown us its motor, and it has shown us its destination. NASA's silence is the most telling part of the story. Throughout the history of space exploration, they have been the first to celebrate the anomalies. They love the mystery, but this time the mystery is too big. If they admit that 3I Atlas is navigating, they have to admit that we are being watched. They have to admit that the extraordinary geometries seen on January 22nd are the blueprints of a craft that didn't originate on this planet. They are trying to find a natural explanation for a phenomenon that is screaming artificial. They are looking for a way to tell us that the triangular jets are just unusual ice formations and that the breaking into L1 is just a gravitational fluke. But the math doesn't lie. You can't accidentally surf a CME, You can't accidentally fire symmetrical thrusters in a 120-degree formation, and you don't accidentally stop at the one coordinate in space that allows for permanent surveillance of a civilization. As we move closer to that Mars-Earth-Sun alignment, 3I Atlas is going to become harder to hide. It is currently moving into a position where it will be backlit by the Sun, making it visible to even high-end amateur telescopes. People are going to start seeing what Hubble saw. They are going to see that this comet doesn't have a tail, it has a wake. It isn't shedding mass, it's directing it. The yarn being spun by official channels is starting to fray. We're being told to look at the pretty lights, while the most advanced piece of technology ever seen in our solar system is currently performing its final docking maneuvers. We are witnessing the arrival of a guest that doesn't need to land to make its presence felt. By simply taking the high ground, by occupying the L1.3I Atlas has already changed the balance of power in our solar system. We've spent decades broadcasting our presence into the dark, sending out radio waves and golden records, hoping for a hello. We expected a signal from a distant star. We never expected the answer to be a silent, geometric visitor that uses our own sun to power its arrival. Keep watching the telemetry. Keep watching the L1 coordinates, because the window for natural explanations is closing. When 3I Atlas reaches its target and finally stops its interstellar drift, the world will have to face a reality that NASA has been trying to delay. The navigation is almost complete. The visitor is here, and it didn't come to visit, it came to stay. The question isn't what 3I Atlas is, the math has already told us that. The real question is, what happens when it finally finishes its journey, looks down out of the L1 point, and decides it's time to start the next phase of its mission? The silence from NASA might be the only warning we get. The visitor is no longer navigating, it's arriving.